do that again.
Okay, here's a question. Do you think that the bleed on my microphone was due to me using the wrong input?
Yes.
Some of my favorite memes have to do with wolves and natural selection.
Yeah, I know. Like a pug and a wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
I
classic.
mean, it's not. I know your dog isn't a pug, but it's like pretty close.
It's not. Yeah, they're cousins.
I mean, it's not
Although I
not
think
pug.
French bulldogs are strong and fast and will chase. She'll like go to the dog park and play with a German Shepherd.
Hmm.
Whereas pugs are kind of like tripping on acid their whole lives from an outsider's perspective.
How does an English bulldog fit into this?
They're like normal. I mean, I would say I'm doing scare quotes. They're normal dogs, but they are less athletic. They're because they really have like the flat faces, and so they always have like the respiratory problems. So
Um,
generally speaking, they are slow and kind of like if you just saw one for the first time and you had to guess what kind of behavior it was capable of. That's what an English bulldog is.
Interesting. Now, what are scare quotes?
Scare quotes. Well, I think I'm using that right. Or you would say like air quotes. Scare quotes are like the quotation marks.
Wait, is it like SC-AIR? Because it's like air quotes, but you're trying to scare someone?
I don't. I don't think so.
No. Okay. So,
I
so
don't
if
think
it's
so.
just SCARE, then there's no air quote about it. It's just scary.
I'm googling it right now.
Just,
Quotation marks
just take a
placed
leap.
around a word or phrase to draw attention. Yeah, exactly. So like I was doing visual scare quotes. I was doing air quotes to imply a scare quote.
Hmm. But why
But I think
scare?
I don't know. Also called shudder quotes, sneer quotes, and quibble marks. That sounds like English, like British.
Yeah.
Quotation. Oh, okay. Quotation marks that a writer places around a word or phrase to signal they are using it in a non-standard, ironic, or otherwise special sense. Chandler Bing is like his dialogue was probably full of that.
I guess we use them so often that we don't really think about it
Exactly. Yeah. I
because
mean,
quotes are meant to to indicate that you're quoting someone, that it is verbatim from something else.
yeah.
But more often
I
than
feel
not,
like
we don't use
Charlie.
that.
I feel like Charlie uses them like not frequently, but I feel I can like picture him using like air quotes and using
Oh
them
yeah.
as like to indicate they're using it in an ironic sense or
I think the funny part of Charlie's air quote, scare quote, quibble mark use is that it's sometimes. I think it's normally like things that aren't that from a normal person wouldn't be quotable like that or ironic or facetious, but because he's such a weird troll person, they are.
yes.
We'll get to it. We'll get there,
He
I'm
has,
sure.
yeah, and he has such aggressive body language that it really works.
Oh yeah, we have that. Actually, we have a really good version of his body language in the beginning of this
I know,
episode.
it's so fucking good. Oh boy. Okay, should we do a show intro?
How does that go?
I think you just said like,
Hey, everybody.
Hey
Hey,
guys,
guys.
welcome to talking with. Wait, what? Should we pick a name? Should we think of a name? What am I doing?
yeah, it's always Stockholm and Los Angeles, but just use that for now.
It's always funny in Philadelphia.
I
It's
mean,
always
or
Stockholm in Los Angeles. Well, the weird part about this is that typically you were living in Stockholm where it's dark and cold in the winter, and gorgeous in the summer. But I was living in Los Angeles where it's not that cold in the winter and it's still sunny usually. But since buying this place up in Crestline, I've have like we had 3 feet of snow 2 weeks ago, and the power was out for 5 days, and
Jesus.
I had to buy a chainsaw to cut apart a
Oh
tree
yeah,
that
yeah,
fell down
yeah,
in my
yeah,
backyard,
yeah.
and all these things. So it's we're sort of living similar, the
It's not.
parallel existences.
Yeah, you have maybe a more high elevation,
Right. Yeah.
uh, chill into the air, and we have the Baltic Sea chill.
Yeah, I have elevation, whereas you have latitude.
Yeah, exactly. Like right now, which is like basically the shortest time of the year, the sun is comes up at like 8:45. Um,
Mhm.
but that doesn't really mean much because the sun doesn't go very high.
Right.
Like, yes, the sun is up for like 6 hours, but like kind of barely, and then as soon as it sets, it's black because it's just like barely peeking up.
Hmm.
It's very. I feel like I'm getting used to it. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I know it's only December, but I rode my bike today, and it was like not very warm. I mean, there's ice on the ground when I was just walking Clem. Yeah. Well, I guess it's 2 Celsius right now
Well,
and
that's good.
raining. Yeah, yeah,
It's
it's not
above
bad.
freezing.
It's above freezing. I mean, because it doesn't get that cold here. That's like a misconception. It just kind of stays cold longer. Like it's like the tortoise and the hare. It's the
Mm,
tortoise because
but everything's
it's
relative because some people would say that like 35 degrees Fahrenheit as a high is pretty cold.
yeah, but I mean we're talking about like you and I who grew up in places that have seasons. Like not to say that Kansas and Long Island are similar, but they kind of are as far as like how
Oh,
cold it gets. Like it gets really cold and it gets really hot.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is more like consistently cold
Right, I see what you're saying. You don't
in
have
the
many like nice 50 or 60-degree days, whereas in New
yeah
York, I
those
don't know if
those don't
Kansas,
happen.
you would
Same yeah
occasionally get those.
exactly. No,
But
it's like
you in the summer
you
you
don't
don't
get
deal with 98 and 100% humidity.
no no summers is nice
That's why it's the summer of the bros.
exactly
Everybody's gonna everybody's gonna get that. Don't worry.
definite. It's a broad reference. Okay,
Let's
um,
do this.
let's start the show.
Let's start the show.
We're talking about season 1, episode 2 of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, titled "Charlie Wants an Abortion."
This, you'll please note, was directed by John Forgellenberry.
Yeah, exactly. Same guy.
So it starts 11:45 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Am I supposed to be saying something?
I don't know. Am I?
No. Well, okay. What I would say, the first scene in this episode is kind of one of my favorites. They're playing basketball, which is something they don't often do, but they have done more than once.
Mhm.
And the first thing that I noticed, and Will, you might have noticed the same thing, is Mac's shirt.
Oh yeah.
That is come to Philadelphia for the crack, and it's a Liberty Bell, obviously cracked. That is definitely from Urban Outfitters, is it not?
Oh, I should know this because I actually worked there shortly for a brief moment, and I lived in Philadelphia, where they're based. But I do not know this.
Yes. Well, we both worked for Urban Outfitters at different times in our lives, but that shirt was from Urban Outfitters. I'm about 98% sure. And then Dee later in the episode is also wearing an Urban Outfitters shirt. It's a very distinct,
Whoa.
like ironic. Yeah, they had those like stupid ironic phrases on it,
Oh,
which
no,
Dennis kind of
100%. It makes
brings
sense.
up right away.
Every asshole on South Street's wearing a T-shirt with an ironic slogan on it.
Right. That's impressive. I totally missed this. I'm glad I'm listening to / creating this podcast with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not the most interesting observation, but yeah. So they're playing basketball, and of course, Charlie is excluded because they say he's a really good ref, which I think is a funny compliment to give someone.
Right. Of course, the backhanded compliment when you want someone to like stay in their position.
Yes, and
But also, I think you're getting ahead of yourself because in addition to Dennis and Mac arguing about his T-shirt, Dennis, comments, "What, you got an ironic slogan on your T-shirt, just like every other idiot in Philadelphia," which is a dig on him because he kind of does, it sets the precedent kind of for the rest of this series because he does usually wear a T-shirt with an ironic slogan, but also because unbeknownst to me, he might have been digging at Urban Outfitters and the general theme of that.
that's how I took it. I took it as them making fun of Urban Outfitters or like
Right.
that
That
type
movement.
of shit. I was going to say something about Dennis there. Oh yeah, Dennis brings up the fact that Mac always cuts the sleeves off his T-shirt, which
Yep.
is a very long, very consistent trend
Mhm.
for young Ronald McDonald.
And he questions the reasoning. He says, "Why? So you can show off your tats?" "Oh yeah, real original." To which Mac
And-
replies, "Dude, they're tribal." And my favorite interaction of this, well, maybe not favorite, but to which Dennis replies, "Oh really? Which tribe are you from?"
Exactly.
Which is an amazing response.
And he is in the later seasons. I don't know if seen. You've probably seen it, but he's had them lasered off. So I guess he doesn't belong to that tribe anymore.
Wait, I mean, it's a dumb question, but like, I would assume they're actual real tattoos. They're not like
Yes.
fake tattoos. And the actual human,
Yeah.
Rob
Yeah.
McElhaney, had them laser removed.
Lasered off. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, maybe this conversation got to him.
Like 15 years later.
Who knows?
Yeah. So then, the mocking of Charlie's height, which is also a very consistent thing. They start doing the Lollipop Guild from.
Do you represent the Lollipop Guild, Charlie?
Do you?
Hey, Charlie.
You the mad munchkin.
Oh, that's
my-
not-
Is that Wizard of Oz? Yeah, Wizard of Oz. Right.
You know, I can't picture it, but it's something
We
like
represent the Lollipop Guild. The Lollipop Guild. Anyways, it's from Wizard of Oz, but for some reason, growing up, I always thought that they were saying we represent the Lollipop Kids,
that. Makes sense.
and I discovered that they were saying Guild like 10 years ago, probably.
It's always fun to realize how wrong you were, but like how close, and you just never knew for your entire life. Whatever. But no, I totally support it, and I've done that 100,000 times, especially with song lyrics. You hear it once and it makes sense in your brain, and then your brain always, it reinforces it every time you hear it, every time you think that. And that's just what it is. There's no way to hear it a different way once you've heard it like the original.
Yeah, like I bet if I tried, I could do, if someone was like, can you write the lyrics to This Saves the Day song? I would be like, yeah, of course I know that song word for word. And I'd get like halfway through and be like, oh yeah, I don't actually know what he says there. It's just like vowel sounds.
Oh
to
yeah,
me.
big time. As someone who doesn't really respond to lyrics typically, as like a dumb drummer, I know almost every kind of percussive and intonation sort of that's being played by a vocalist, but I don't know a lot of the words.
Yeah. Well, your brain's just wired differently.
Anyway, so while Mac and Dennis are arguing, Charlie jumps in. He wants to play. They say he's a great ref and dig him that way, and then somehow the height comes into play. And then the Lollipop Guild gets referenced as him being a munchkin. And then he starts doing a dance as they're all arguing and yelling.
Yeah, they all start doing the dance, and it's a beautiful scene.
Yeah, it's great. And again, I think it's one of those moments where it defines the show in the sense that if you like them yelling and riffing and arguing and being stupid over each other, you like the show. And if that's not something you're interested in, then you do not like the show.
I mean, the most common complaint about this show is that they're just yelling at each other all the time, and they kind of do that a lot.
Okay, this is what we do. I'm the munchkin man.
Exactly. And I think that defines like sort of the relationship. If you appreciate this moment, as you said, it's a beautiful moment. I agree. And if you do appreciate it, then you probably are a real like serious fan.
Yeah, it's like listening to like I wouldn't say hardcore music. I'd say more like if you listen to like Cannibal Corpse, you either are fine with the way that dude sings,
right,
or you think it's the worst thing in the world, and that it defines if you like it or not.
Right, it's very polarizing.
Exactly, polarizing.
Okay, and this brilliant moment is interrupted, not easily, but interrupted by Stacey Corvelli.
Great name.
Who chimes in and kind of meekly says, Charlie, I have to talk to you. Charlie, hey, Charlie, I have to tell you something. And they just keep riffing and yelling and arguing, paying no attention. And then she finally shouts, "It's about your son," which kind of has the record skip and everything, screeches to a halt. And they look over. And one of my favorite moments is when Dennis responds to that after a brief moment of silence and says,
Nobody wants to hear that.
He's right.
"That's a scary thing to hear."
Of course. I was just looking up the actress that plays Stacy, and she was in the Blair Witch Project.
Really?
Yeah. Did you see that movie in theaters? Like when it was like people didn't know what it was?
I don't know. I want to say yes, but I don't know.
I saw it in theaters, and I think people had kind of figured out what it was, but that like did not matter. The last scene of that movie just like it's something that is burned into my brain, and I have no interest in seeing it again for a lot of reasons. And that being one of them. I genuinely did think it was scary, but now probably if you watched it now, it would not be anything.
Interesting. I don't remember what happens, which is a very normal thing for me, which is kind of fascinating because I can watch shows and movies and still be surprised.
Well, it's like the first like found footage. Maybe not the first, but it's like the big,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
they found these tapes in the forest, and they're whatever. It sounds so stupid that people would have fallen for that. But
So wait, sorry. I know this is a huge tangent, but so the premise before anyone knew it, the premise when they released it, they claimed that this was real found footage.
exactly.
Oh, okay. I thought for a second, and again, this is after having seen the movie, but not in 20 years. I thought maybe they were filming themselves on a documentary and they found some footage, and it was like, but no. Okay.
No, it was like found footage. Like another example of that did also just completely fuck me up was the first Paranormal Activity. I'm sure I've talked to you about that, but how like deeply scary I found that movie to be.
I don't think I saw that one, but
My good friend Stephen Wolf and I saw it when we were living in an apartment together in the Upper East Side. We went to like the local theater, and we saw it there was like a bunch of like teenagers at the same showing, and they were just like screaming. There's jump scares like left and right.
Right.
And that just like added to it. Like, I don't know, there's something about like hearing a real human reaction.
Right.
It's not the case all the time. Sometimes it can be annoying, but in this case, we were all just like, everyone in the theater was like, "What the fuck?" And then that was the same night that they had like turned on the heat in our building, and our building was super old, so they turned on the heat, and there's like demon sounds coming from the radiator.
Right. All the
And
creaking
like
and
it did not
groaning.
help, and like we just like slept with our doors open. Like,
Aw.
you still awake? Yeah. I was like 28 or something like that. Like, embarrassing.
Yeah, grown ass man being terrified.
Exactly.
Also, yeah, going back to being in the theater, it's 100% a different experience. In the same, I guess it's more different, but like the score and the soundtrack to a movie, more so the score, like they sort of influence how scared you're going to be. If you turn a horror movie sound off, it's not going to be nearly as scary. And the energy in the room is going to be different in the same sense that if you go see if you went to see your friend who was playing in town and you went to their sound check and saw them like rip through a song and it was really exciting, and then, they stop and nothing happens, it would be like, great, that was cool. But then if you see them at that same show and it's packed and there's energy and there's people responding and interacting,
exactly.
You're going to be blown away by the comparison.
Totally. Exactly.
Or like a live show, a live recording when there's no audience mics and it's just really awkward when you finish the song.
There are so few good live albums. I mean, they obviously exist, but yeah, for a lot of it, it's just like, I'm sure it was a great show. Like there's some like, I don't know, like pop punk bands or punk bands that have released live albums that were like not mixed well, and lack of crowd mics or like piped in crowd sounds, and it's just like, I don't know, it's like a laugh track.
Yeah, basically.
It
As
doesn't work.
I guess as a bass player, as a drummer, like when someone records you, you could play so well and just nail it, and then you listen back to some recording and it's just awkward because they didn't capture it correctly. So yeah, I could definitely see the audience participation adding to the impact and the effect of that movie.
Yeah.
Holy tangent. We haven't hit the title scene yet.
Yeah, but we can skip all that because we talked about the Philly tour intro before in the last episode, so we can just get right to the next part.
Cool. All right. So, do we know where we land when we come back?
Yes, it is an exterior shot of wait, no. Is it the bar scene or is it?
Yeah, I think it's the bar scene.
At the bar, yeah.
Because this is the scene. I don't know where I'm out of order, but when Charlie's like, "Well, now you're just a word genius, and you're taking everything I say and you're turning it back around and using it against me."
Oh yeah, because he wanted to go back in time and tell her to have an abortion.
To do the right thing. What, exactly. You mean be there for her? No, to get her an abortion. Yeah, well, it's important, and I probably shouldn't have stepped out of line because there are so many things that happen in this. It's where we see the beginning of Mac's religious sort of leanings.
Yeah, and he's way more familiar with the Bible in this episode than I think he is in any other episode, because I feel like he stumbles, like it becomes like a joke, like he doesn't actually know anything about the Bible.
I think in this one it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah, but
I mean,
he quotes it though, like he's like Genesis or whatever. He, like,
right.
does the verse.
I guess we should maybe look it up and find out. But I thought that he made that up. I thought that was the joke, was that he was just like, Genesis
really?
4, book 16, and then he breatheth into the nostril, and then it was good. Like
It sounded real to me.
right, but you can say a lot of. I mean, when we did the Natty and Noon, I don't know, webisodes.
Yeah.
We looked up fucked up Bible verses.
Yeah, would you believe any of those were in the Bible?
Exactly. Those were real. So it's like when you say, like, I don't know, it sounds believable. It doesn't sound believable, the half of the stuff that's actually in there.
Okay, so maybe I should say he seems a little more confident in delivering this than he does in future episodes.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'll buy that.
He doesn't trip over himself quite really at all.
Well, I guess the main premise of this discussion is Charlie being like upset and being like, I don't know how this can't be, and Dee being kind of the voice of reason, which I guess she does a lot, but she steps out of that obviously. But typically she is like the moral compass of the group.
Yes.
And she's like, well, did you guys have sex together? And he's like, well, yeah, we had sex. And she's like, well, did you use protection or whatever, and then birth control? And he's like, no, we went to Catholic school, we couldn't do that. And then when he says I should have done the right thing, get an abortion, Dee responds,
So you're not allowed to use birth control, but abortions are no problem?
All right, okay, so now you're like a word genius.
that's what earns her the title of word genius.
I think it's funny, this is a little off topic. I think it's funny that they like the running thing is that they all went to high school together, but their upbringings were so different. I guess I would feel like Dennis and Dee would have gone to a private school, but
Right.
I guess not.
Also, it's they did go to high school together, but did Mac and Charlie go to a religious, like elementary, middle school, like earlier education? Is that the?
I just assumed it was a Catholic high school.
Oh, they all went to the same. That seems weird because I feel like Mac and Charlie reference going to the same school a lot. So I think.
I mean, remember the high school reunion?
Right. They all went to the same high school. That's.
Oh, you're saying they did.
I'm saying they might have gone to a different. I think the religious part might have been younger, and therefore the high school may have been not religious.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
the way Mac and Charlie discuss their religious sort of stuff seems to imply that it wasn't what Dee and Dennis Dee in this scene has a lot of questions about it. Like, well, how does that work? And how does, why is an abortion okay, but birth control isn't? That makes no sense. So I feel like they would have already had those discussions if they had gone to the same, like, elementary school.
Sure. That makes sense. We'll just make it canon. Like, that's what happened in our telling of the tale.
In our version.
Yeah.
Also, I think that Dennis brings up a really weird, sort of awkward point, and they get into it a little bit because we're now getting into like reproductive rights, but which again, 2005. Dennis says,
Charlie's right, though. I mean, he should have at least had a say in the matter.
It is scary to think that, like, obviously, I think that a woman should have the right to deal. It's like her body, but it is weird to be like, oh, you're having a kid or you're not having a kid, and you're just. Because it's like part of your DNA as a man, like, but you don't have much say in it, or I guess you can have an opinion, but it's like a vote that doesn't count.
Exactly. I mean, it depends on the relationship, but yeah, in general, it's not your decision, like, period.
Yeah, I guess it's just weird because it's a very unique situation, and I don't know too many areas in like life where you have that sort of connection and investment sort of, and responsibility to something that you have no control over.
Yeah. And I mean, this would be like, it's probably made even more stressful because it was so long ago, and memories might not be super accurate, but he's like, yeah, I mean, we did have sex. So it's like 100% a possibility. Or okay, that's redundant. It's like it could be true. Like
Right.
it wouldn't be like, no, that was like last month. Like, no, there's no way.
Right. It's
You
a
go
non-zero
far
chance.
enough back. Exactly. Hey, hang on one second.
Yes.
I'm not gonna leave your side, but I am putting the mic down.
Okay. You still got those Bluetooth earphones in?
Yeah.
Damn it, I can't talk shit. Oh, you know what? I totally could. All I have to do is mute my phone, and then you can't hear me, and you'll find out what happens when you edit or when I edit and you hear it. Yeah,
But
there's just a little
the
less.
thing about you saying that you could talk shit if you like muted your mic or your phone. That reminds me of a time when we were rehearsing. Phone was rehearsing, and we like took a break, and I had my ears in, and I went to the bathroom, and I could hear Gordon talking. This was like the very beginning of I think it was before even Some Nights was out. We were just like learning those songs, and there was a
Right.
point in time when I was playing the floor tom,
Oh, okay.
like which I wasn't really crazy about in the first place.
Right.
And
No, it
yeah, and Gordon was like, "Yeah, I don't know. He's like a little loosey goosey. Maybe we could find something else." And I heard it, and and I came in and like pretended to be upset about it, and it was just really funny.
was
I mean,
you?
because he didn't say anything worse than loosey goosey, so it was just
Right.
like whatever. It's fine. Because I didn't want to be doing it anyways, but
Right. And you were probably, if pushed, you wouldn't have argued or something. You know, you wouldn't have been like,
No.
I'm so good at the floor tom.
yeah, because you're basically singing high and loud the whole song, and then like playing this like made up rhythm on the floor tom that's not in the recording. You know, it's like I don't.
All right, cool. So then let's move to exterior of a classic Philly row home. Also, I fucking love it when they do the exterior shots. Also, the interior shots of a lot of these houses kind of remind me, but also not. But the exteriors are just so Philadelphia. Those like shitty
yeah,
little
yeah.
porches, like
Yeah.
they're very narrow, very shallow and wide.
Mhm.
Or I'm getting ahead of myself, but like when someone yells up and somebody opens the window and sticks their head out, I think that's also like an old timey New York thing, but like it's very Philadelphia. I mean, like it wasn't
Mhm.
that long ago where people would 100% do that.
Yeah. Was it just Rob McElhenney that lived there or grew up there? But yeah, I feel
Right.
like they really. Again, I'm no expert, but I feel like they really try to make it authentic to Philly.
Right.
Especially in the earlier days.
Anyways, so they're outside of Stacy Corvelli's Blair Witch person's house, and they're prepping for that. I don't think anything interesting happens. When they're prepping, they knock. What's going on here? What's good?
Yeah. So then, well, Stacy answers and she's like, "Hey, good to see you, Charlie." And then looks at Dennis.
You brought your,
Yeah, Dennis Reynolds. We got a chance to talk before, but I remember you, yeah.
you went to St. Joe's?
I did, yeah. Yeah.
So you two are,
She immediately assumes that they're a couple,
Right.
which was very 2005.
Mhm.
I feel like that joke seemed a little dated, but
Yeah.
so they come in and they meet Tommy. Oh my God, Tommy! That I'm not gonna click on it, but that actor is extremely good at playing that bratty ass kid, because he's also Meredith's son in The Office, playing basically the same character.
Oh, I couldn't think of one thing that he's done otherwise, but I knew that I'd seen him in at least one, if not 10 other things where he is exactly this character. And it makes
Yeah,
me think
he's
that maybe he's either really good, a one-trick pony, or this is like he's got this inside him.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of both.
He's believably shitty and annoying.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where Stacy is going, but she kind of seems like she's in a hurry to get out of the house, probably just because she's.
It looks
alone
like she's going to work. I don't know. To me, she puts on like white like sneakers that make me think she's like working on her feet. You know what I mean? Like a waitress or something, like somebody who's like on their feet all day.
Yeah, so she's like quickly leaving, and she's like, "Oh, what are you guys gonna do?" And they reply that they're gonna take him to the park, and she says, "Tommy, that's great. You want to go to the park?" And he's like, "I don't care." But what I noticed is that he was playing a Game Boy,
Right.
a green Game Boy, maybe a Game Boy Color, and and I was thinking like how, yes, people don't carry on Game Boys anymore, but it's the same thing as having a phone. It's the exact same thing. Like the same stance, the same like I don't care.
Right.
It's no different.
Yeah, I always think about that when people are like, "Man, nobody interacts anymore. Look at all you guys. Like, you're just staring down at your phones." And then people have those like, those cut screen photos where they show like, a 1930s bus stop, and it's just a bunch of people reading the newspaper, not talking to each other.
Exactly.
And now it's like, yeah, they're just looking at your phone, and half those people are probably looking at stupid, bad news. And it's like, I don't know, we didn't like each other then. We didn't talk to each other then. We don't do it. I mean, I guess it's different with friends because that is a thing. Like when I am hanging out with friends, sometimes we do get distracted because there is an addiction and it's so easy to do all those things.
Sure.
But in public, when you're waiting at the doctor's office, like when you're waiting to get a paternity test,
Exactly.
yeah, there's like, it's whatever. You read a magazine, you like read a newspaper, you read a book, you read your phone.
I think the population of Sweden had to be thrilled with the invention of the smartphone and the proliferation of it, because I feel like that's a tendency of this society here is like you don't talk to your neighbors, you don't talk to who you're sitting next to on the bus or whatever. It's like a very not lonely, but there's like a real solitude. There's a real like they do look out for each other, from a like social welfare perspective. But the ironic part of it, I guess, is that there is less of a human connection between people who don't know each other or who are like neighbors, like sort of familiar. Which was very weird for me at first as a born and bred Midwesterner, where it's
Right.
like, I mean, small talk is basically all you do. Like you don't really get to know people, like, other than your close friends super well, because you're just talking about the weather or some shit, or like, the Broncos
their truck
game.
or...
Exactly. So yeah, that's something I've noticed here is like today I was on the subway and I had my dog, so I was not looking at my phone. So I was just holding her leash, and I was like getting her to sit and get situated, and so then then I grabbed on. The train took off, and there was an elderly couple sitting in the seats like across from me that I was looking at, and they didn't have phones. They were the only people that I could see in sight that weren't looking at their phones, but they also weren't talking. They were just looking straight ahead.
Right.
They probably wish they had a newspaper.
Right. Well, here's a question: is so I understand that there's sort of a like self-reliance. There's like a solitude, whatever that you're describing to that society, but like. Here, having a dog, it's very common. Like if I see a dog that seems fun and playful, I always ask the owner if I could say hi, and then they're half the time they're like, "Yeah, she's super friendly," or "He's great," and and then I'll like drop down to one knee and go play with the dog. Does that happen? Do dogs elicit that sort of
No.
response?
Not at all. No, not
Weird.
at all. It's if anything, it's the opposite. I feel like I meet someone every day. I'm like, oh shit, that person doesn't like dogs, because they like cross the street or like stop so I can pass, or like do something to indicate that they're not thrilled about there being a dog. And she's a small, cute French bulldog. If anything, all she wants is to like say hi to people. But
Right.
no, that doesn't happen here at all.
Interesting. That's very, very interesting. Do you
Yes.
think that they actually don't like dogs, or not dislike dogs, but just don't really want to say hi? Or do you think that it's an extension in the same sense that maybe the person next to you is very, very friendly and would like to make your acquaintance and be your friend, but it's impolite in their view to
I think
reach
it's more
out?
of that. Yeah, I don't know if I would say impolite. I would just say more of like the societal norm
Right. Like
is to keep to yourself.
do
but,
they think they're doing something like proper etiquette wise
Right.
by letting your
Yes,
dog pass versus like trying to pet 'em?
Exactly. Because, my first few months here, I was just like, everyone is rude here. Like, no one's nice. But the thing is, I'm looking for that, like, Midwestern over the top. I mean, you know me, I'm not really like that type of person. But I feel like when I'm back home, like, yes, that's what you do. You like say hi to the person at the gas station, and you they'll say something to you about the weather. It's like stupid stuff like that
Yeah.
that you don't even really think about when you're living there. But then when you come here and it's the exact opposite, you just assume that everyone's rude. But in actuality, if you're trying to drum up conversation, like you could be perceived as the rude one.
Right. Well, I think we've just tackled customs and cultural norms.
Okay. So yeah, the when Stacy, the mom, leaves, Tommy looks at the guys and says,
I'm not going to the park.
His bratty delivery.
yes, it was very bratty. And then is it Mac or sorry, is it Dennis or Charlie that says
No shit.
line?
It's Dennis, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
such a good delivery. Again, I think we talked about this last week, but a very Always Sunny-ish, like classic delivery of like sort of things pause, and then it's like no shit, So then that cuts to them at the free clinic, health center, whatever it is. Charlie's filling out paperwork. Tommy is annoying him. Dennis is just trying to, I don't know why he's there. Just tagging along, moral support.
Moral support, yeah.
Oh, right. That's what he actually
He
indicates
actually says that, yeah.
to Stacey Corvelli when she accuses him of being a couple. So what's good about this scene? What do we like about this scene?
Well, there's a scene that's also kind of 2005 between Dennis and this woman in the waiting room, where they're talking about if he has AIDS, and then she like propositions him.
Well, yeah, because I understand the 2005 comment, but I do like the end of it. She asked if that's his boyfriend. He says no, and she says, "Does he have AIDS?" He's like, "I don't know. I don't think so." Like, "Do you have AIDS?" He's like, "Nope, don't have AIDS." She's like, "Okay, I'll blow you for $10 or something ridiculous." And then he's like,
You know what? Let me consult some of this free literature they got here regarding that proposition. Oh, you know what? According to this, that's not really a good idea, so I'm going to have to pass, but thanks.
I like his response.
I noticed at the end of that episode that that actress is credited and her character name is Crack Whore.
Oh,
which
awesome.
was just brutal. Yeah.
Well, I guess it would be if it wasn't this show where Dennis and Dee get addicted to crack several times,
no,
and
I know.
all of the things that happen to all of the people
After like Charlie fills out the paperwork and they sit back down, Tommy starts saying that he wants to go to the mall. Right. And I feel like we've all seen this happen to some poor parents somewhere.
Right.
And he just completely loses it and just screaming and yelling, and then he bites Charlie's hand when Charlie tries to quiet him, and he gets his way.
Right. You have to. I guess
kind of like how my dog is sometimes.
Right.
It's the same thing. If it's too like embarrassing or causing too much attention, like you just got to bail.
Right. Yeah, and you have to give in, and it sucks. And it's always those things that you're like, well, I would never do that, like my kid. And then once you're in that position, you're like, it's not worth it. This is the path of least resistance. This is what we're going to do.
Exactly. So, they bail.
So I guess at this point, Dennis is out, and somehow Dee is in. This is where they switched. Is there another mall? Is there another bar scene between them?
Dee takes over wearing an Urban Outfitters shirt, and they're in the mall. And I was trying to figure out which mall it was. I thought it was maybe the Glendale Galleria, but I don't think it was.
No, I'm pretty sure
they're in LA, right?
I don't know.
Shit.
Usually when they go to the mall, they go to the Galleria, which is different than the Galleria. Oh, wait a second.
Galleria.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. Oh my God. Now I'm freaking out because there's a mall in Philadelphia in Center City that sucks, and I think it's the Galleria.
I think the Glendale Galleria sucks too.
This is a different type.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm just saying. Yeah, well, I just assumed that they were in LA, but maybe not. So they go. He wants to go to a toy store, which I don't know. He seemed a little old to be like running to the toy store, but maybe not. And of course, they run into the waitress.
I forget what the negotiation is. I wish I remember, but at some point, Charlie's like, "Well, Dee, if you pretend to be my girlfriend, maybe it'll make her jealous." And she's like, "Well, not doing that." And I think he negotiates a little bit, but I forget the details of it. But either way, she sees them or they see her, and they approach, and she's like, "Oh, what are you doing? At the toy store?" And And the waitress says, "Oh, that's my little sister," and it's just a little brown girl, like, and I guess they assume correctly she's Mexican. And Charlie questions it, and she's like, "Yeah, that's my little sister. I'm part of the little sister, big brother, big sister, like whatever program." And Dee chimes in with lightning quick reflexes and says,
It's such a coincidence. That's exactly what we're here doing.
"Do you see that little kid over there? That's Charlie's little brother."
Yeah, and so they're talking a little bit, and the waitress asks Charlie if he's going to the picnic or the whatever party at the park, and he's like, "Yeah, of course, yeah." And during that interaction, he says he loves Mexicans, referring to his kid, and I just thought that was a very funny, probably improv line.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scene when at the end of their interaction where at the end of their interaction, Charlie goes in to hug the waitress, and Dee grabs him like split second, so he doesn't do it.
Right.
I thought that was hilarious. Also, what I noticed in this scene is that there was a lot of Stewie Griffin dolls around, and I'm assuming that was because their show was on FX.
Oh, interesting. I did
Because
not pick up on that at all.
It seemed like all the toys, like the second time I was watching it, it seemed like all the toys were like pretty generic, like safe. You're not going to get,
Yeah, no Mickey
copyright
Mouse
infringement.
or anything. Yeah,
Exactly, except Stewie Griffin, who was in like 2 of the shots.
gotcha. Interesting. I just assumed it was time, like 2005. That's what was in a toy store.
I mean, it probably was too, but that to me seems a little too coincidental.
Right, especially when nothing else is recognizable. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So Charlie's basically got a date via this awful, awful brat with the waitress. So that's cool. So he's stoked on that. So anyway, I guess while Dennis and Charlie had gone off earlier to meet Tommy for the first time, that's when Mac goes to get reinforcements to really push his religious view on the gang. So he heads over to, what would it
Sacred
be?
Choice or something like that. It's
Sacred right? It's a child, not a choice.
It's like probably like a Christian nonprofit,
Right, like a pro-life center.
terror organization. Yeah.
So he's talking to this woman at the front desk, and she's just like a normal, momish sort of receptionist-y sort of person who seems really friendly and really sweet, but he's just being a complete dick to her. And she's, trying to tell him about the program and what they do, and she's like, or he just interrupts her, and he's like,
I don't really want to join your little freak show. Just looking for some information, so if you could point me in the right direction, that'd be great.
Well, we have some literature on the display back by the wall.
It's a pretty Mac scene when he's trying to be like religious and moral and have the higher ground morally, but he's being a dick. And as he's grabbing some pamphlets, he notices a woman in the cubicle next to him who's super hot. So he does a very Mac like good facial expression as he like puts the pamphlet down and does a nice spin turn into her office. I like that.
Also important to point out in this scene that he is wearing a button-down shirt with the sleeves cut not at the shoulder, but just short sleeves.
Oh, those are cut.
That's a DIY job.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Man, you are so perceptive and I am not.
Well, I feel like I did that at one point in my teenage years.
Oh, so it takes one to know one.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. So, what do you think? This is what's good about this interaction with Megan?
I don't really remember. He just kind of like lies his way into agreeing with her.
Yeah.
She's like, "Are you here to sign up for the rally?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's why I'm here." Even though I don't think that's why he was there. I think he was there to just get some info.
No, I think I don't think it was maybe as explicit, but I think basically the woman at the front was having the same sort of conversation with him, and he was just like, "Nope, shut up, lady. Just tell me where the pamphlets are. Just I want some material so I can prove my friends wrong." And now he's like, "Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm here." I forget. He has a couple of funny quotes, but I don't know if it's this scene or other ones. But he's like, "I hate people that love abortions because I love babies, and I think they should be alive."
He says that he hates them, and she's like, "Wow, hate is a strong word." And he's like, "Well,
I hate dead baby fetuses. I hate them because they're dead and they shouldn't be."
Which is like a good like recovery or like he's improving, and he basically just like did a quick save.
I don't even think that was a quick save. I think he was just like going for it and emphasizing, because I think she was impressed by his hateful words.
Yeah.
I don't think he had to save himself. I think he was pushing it. I think he was going even further.
He's just passionate.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
She says.
Oh,
she
that's,
says that
that's it.
he's passionate, and he says, "What does he say?"
More than you know.
Just making an obviously sexual innuendo sort of thing that she doesn't get. So I think do they go to a rally first? I think they do. I think that day they go to a rally.
Oh yeah, because then he reports back, and then Dennis is like,
so they so they go to the rally, and he starts making up rhetoric, and she compliments him on literally, he's like, I forget, man, I wish I knew his line that she replied, but anyway, she says, "Oh man, good rhetoric."
Wow, great rhetoric.
Thank you.
Hey, you're really hardcore, aren't you?
Oh, well,
that was so
a
funny.
Good compliment.
Yes.
And then I think that's when he gives her the list. That's it. He says, something, and then she's like, "Man, you're really hardcore." And he's like, "Well, you want to see this? You want to see something hardcore?" And he hands her a piece of paper. So she unfolds it, and says, "Wait, what's this?" And he's like, just nonchalantly, as he's looking off the other way, he just like leans in and says, "Oh, it's a list of doctors I plan to kill." And then she says, "Wait, but 2 of the names are crossed out." And he says, "I know."
And then it's just a brilliant cut to them having
making
sex
out
in the car.
Yeah. The backseat of her car, and they're just like ripping clothes off, and he's all excited and having fun. So then they cut back to the bar.
Charlie goes back to Stacy's house to get the kid, and he's like,
not to get. I think maybe to drop him off.
Well, he's asking if he can have him on Saturday.
Right.
Yeah, so he goes back and asks Tommy's mom. He's like, "Yeah, I was thinking about, maybe Saturday 8 a.m. just getting Tommy again." And she's like, "Really?" Like kind of taken
Obviously,
aback by his enthusiasm for being a dad, I guess. And I think that the guilt just overwhelms her, and she's like,
I can't do this. Tommy's not your son.
What?
Remember Jimmy Doyle from high school? That son of a bitch is Tommy's real father.
Obviously knows that Tommy is a shithead. So so she breaks down, and then he freaks out and starts screaming. He's like, "What? So you thought you'd just pawn him off on me? Blah blah blah." So, and she's like, "What? I didn't know what else to do. I was overwhelmed." He's like, Stop it. Let me think. And he like calms himself down, and then he's like, "Okay, can I still have him on Saturday?" She's like, "What? You really want it?" And he's like, "Yeah, can I just do it?" And she's like, "Okay, sure." And he's like, "Okay, fine, let's go." Wow. So obviously his need to spend time with Tommy in order to convince the waitress that he's awesome outweighs Tommy's annoyance. So he decides to deal with this kid that is definitely not his son, who is awful, in order to, hang out with the waitress.
Precis. Okay, so then what happens after that? Is it the bar?
I think this is where Dennis hears about Mac's experience. I think Mac reports
that's
back.
What I mean. That's what I mean.
So they're back at the bar, and Mac's telling Dennis about this girl that he met at the pro-life rally, and how much I think he's like, "Man, she is a freak. She's awesome. She's so hot. You gotta, he's like, "There are a ton of women at these kind of things. You should totally come." And Dennis starts getting excited. He's like, "Oh, okay, that sounds pretty good." And Dee is just, offended by this. She thinks, comments on how awful they are. And then when they make plans to go to this rally, that's when Dee chimes in and says,
I'm gonna go. At least one pro-choice voice is gonna be heard.
One? There was like tons of those chicks at the last one.
Which side had more?
Dee obviously calls him out for being awful. And that's when he changes his mind and decides to go on to Dee's side to look for women, because I think he asks which side has hotter women or more women. I think Dee's response is good. Do you remember what she says?
Oh, which one do you think? The one that cares about protecting women's bodies, or the one that's run by the religious right?
Right.
And he responds, he's like, "I'm on your side."
Exactly.
And then she probably says, "You're going to hell."
You're a scumbag, Dennis.
So then I believe we go back to Charlie. And no, fuck, what happens next?
I think they might go to the rally, or there might be some. That might be. We might have had those two scenes mixed up, but either way, I think next is the rally where Dennis is just walking around hitting on women, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, are you hitting on me at an abortion rally?"
Yeah, it's like just so
painful.
It's oozing sleaze. It's just like it's a really good job of Glenn Howerton being a real perfect sleazeball in this. There's like an interaction where he's like, "Yeah, I like your look," like just like the most generic,
right?
Just trying to make some sort of conversation through compliments and
you got the whole hippie thing going on. I like it. I like the look.
Yeah.
And then someone calls him. I think he says that he likes someone's T-shirt, and then asks if she comes to these things often, which is again like he's throwing out the most generic pickup lines at an abortion rally.
He's throwing out bar pickup lines in an abortion.
Yeah,
rally.
Exactly. And then I think she says, "Get lost, breeder."
Get lost, breeder.
He obviously gets discouraged, and D is like, "Yeah, obviously they can fucking smell the desperation on you. You're gross." So he calls Mac and says that.
Well, before that, Mac is making signs with Megan.
Oh, right.
And he says, "I love the smell of protest in the morning."
Right.
And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, from Apocalypse Now." And I loved this part. This may be my favorite part of the episode. She says, "Is that the new Mel Gibson movie?" Because I believe at that time he had a movie called Apocalypto.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So
that's funny.
She just assumed like her cultural references are Mel Gibson movies because The Passion of the Christ, which she says she saw.
I saw it 12 times.
Okay.
Max, maybe his first warning, surprisingly, that maybe this isn't quite the relationship that he wants to be in.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know that was that he was in a movie called Apocalypto, which is actually funny.
It's a pretty subtle joke that maybe it wasn't as subtle back then, but I thought that was really funny.
Well, it's kind of clever in several ways, but it's interesting also that I think she pretty soon after that, once they kind of realize that they're missing, that they don't get the other references, like each other's references, she says, "But, well, you shouldn't really joke about the apocalypse anyway." And he was like, "Wait, what?"
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, I went to high school with people who were just like that.
But that line is funny to me because it's like, obviously she's being like, I don't know, precious about something, which is fine if you think something is beyond being joked about, but whatever. But the funny thing is that, I don't know, like, he's not like making fun of the apocalypse, but
he's quoting in a movie called Apocalypse Now.
Right.
That was his sin.
That was his sin, but if your assumption is correct that they were sort of referencing Apocalypto, that seems to have an apocalypse reference anyway. Which
exactly.
I didn't see that level of it, but it's pretty funny if that's the case.
Yeah.
And then I think his sign is, "What if Jesus was aborted?"
It's so good. And she says that he's a genius.
Right.
Pretty good. So I believe at this point is when Dennis calls Mac on their flip phones, which is just like, again, like it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it was a long time ago. Like you would just text that person.
Right.
And like to be like, 50 yards away from each other and calling each other is just, to me, it's just like, oh yeah, that's what we used to do.
That's what cell phones were for at one point.
Yeah. So
yes.
then, so Mac is like, yeah, just come over here. There's tons of women, or something to that effect. And Dennis is like, see you later, alligator. Is that what they said? Later, gator, I believe was the phrase.
Later, gator.
That they used, which was pretty funny.
Later, gator.
So then Dennis, for some reason, decides that the quickest way to get over to Mac's side is to climb the fence.
Right, and just so obviously everyone, that's all the one person who's listening to this, hi Ryan. It's like the one side has a fence put up. Or I guess there are two fences. There's like a walkway. It seems like
so the
patients and doctors
exactly.
can get in and out without going through the crowd. So the crowds are separated. So through this catwalk is where people would go in and out of the clinic. But on one side is the pro-abortion, and one side is pro-life or whatever. So exactly. It's like rather than walk 5 minutes around the fence, I guess he decides to climb over an 8-foot or 10-foot fence to this barrier, and then over another fence. So as he's doing that, someone shouts like, "Oh no, they're coming over!" And and I guess they're prepared for this, or it happens because Megan pulls out a dozen eggs. And at some point, Mac is like, "Oh, no, don't worry, that's my." And then she cuts him off and says, "We know how to deal with these assholes," or whatever. She probably doesn't say asshole. And I guess at some point he decides like, well, yeah, this seems like more fun than telling her that that's my friend.
What I liked about that interaction is she says, "How's your aim?" And Mac says,
Pretty good, but I don't think that's such a good idea.
Hey, it's okay. These people.
that's like the Mac of the future who's delusional.
Right.
But he actually did have pretty good aim. Left-hander.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that. Weird.
I noticed that both Mac and Dee are left-handed.
Oh. Maybe that's why they got married.
Exactly.
They couldn't find anyone else. So everyone pelts Dennis with eggs, and it's awesome. I think even the side that he was coming from somehow.
Yes, they both are.
They both have eggs. That doesn't seem like a thing that happens, but it's a funny thing to see him get pelted while he's straddling a fence.
Yeah, and there was no CGI used. Like, I wonder how long that took with Glenn Howerton just like straddling the fence, getting hit by eggs. It's pretty funny.
So I guess at that point in the fever and excitement of them throwing eggs is when Megan sort of reveals to Mac and makes she's like, "Oh, I have something so amazing to tell you." And he's like, "Okay, what?" And they're kind of yelling because of the crowd noise. And she's like, "I'm pregnant." And he just has this like big dumb Mac face on, and he's like, "What?" And she's like, "I'm pregnant." And then after a classic Always Sunny pause, he says,
You gotta get an abortion!
Some of the best acting that Rob McElhenney's done on this show. That scene, it's just brilliant.
So do they cut back to her car after that?
She's storming off. Yeah, she storms off.
Yeah. So they get back to her car, and she's like in the car, pissed. Turns on the car, and he's like, "Wait." I forget how it gets there, but at some point, not some point, but quickly she leads into it. And she's like, don't worry, I'm not pregnant." And he's like, "What? You're not? What? That's great." And she's like, "It was a test." And he's like, "Oh, great, it was a test." And she's like, "Yes." And he's like, "Oh, so I failed." And she says, "Yeah." He's like, "Damn." The slowness in which he realizes the situation, like the reality of it, is amazing. Where he like has to verify each thing with a distinct question.
Yes, it has to be explicitly clear.
Right.
Have you ever? I'm assuming that this was like a Planned Parenthood is what they're
right. Yeah.
Have you ever experienced anything like this in your actual life?
No, only vicariously through Always Sunny. I've never been to an abortion rally or any kind of rally like that.
I've been to Planned Parenthood a couple times, and there was never any protests. But I know that they're like, this was like on the West Coast, but I think that it's like a genuinely terrifying experience in some places.
I mean, I've read news articles about things like that, but I've never experienced that myself now.
Yeah. I lived in Lawrence, Kansas for many years, as you know, and that's right next to Topeka, Kansas, which is where the Westboro Baptist Church is. If you're familiar with the Phelps family.
Not the Phelps family, but obviously the Westboro Baptist Church and their protests and all that.
Yeah, so they would protest like literally everything in Lawrence. And so, yeah, this is kind of just like brought me back to that. But everyone like they were so present all the time that it was like pretty meaningless, and it's a college town too, so like no one gave a shit. So
right, it seemed like they would be like outnumbered sort of in a way. Maybe not like, I mean, obviously they probably like had people organized and protesting, whereas everyone else probably felt so comfortable in the opposite way that they didn't have to protest.
Yeah.
Like that's how I would imagine somewhere like Lawrence would react.
Yeah, or people would just like there would be like a counter protest of people like literally just standing in front of them, or there would be people like I had a friend who put on like a ballerina outfit and just like danced in front of them for half an hour. No one took them seriously, but they are. I mean, I guess they're still around. They are a hateful bunch.
Right.
They had one sign that I recall very distinctly. That was God blew up the space shuttle.
For the Challenger?
I guess.
Jesus. And
so,
was anyone on board that? Like gay or aborted or what? What's the deal?
I think it was just a conversation starter. But
just like literally like someone probably sinned, so that probably means that God probably did it.
Yeah. Because, I mean, there are like always like the classics, like the really hateful ones. But that one really stuck in my mind as being like, I actually do kind of want to know why God would blow up the space shuttle. Is it because the astronauts are getting too close to God?
Well, it's probably because they're going to break through the firmament and ruin the illusion.
Is that against the Bible rules to leave Earth?
I don't know. I'm assuming that they weren't thinking that far ahead.
Anyways, we're almost done. I heard you yawn. The first we see of Charlie and Tommy again is Charlie, I believe, coming to the bar with Tommy, saying, "If you just get through this one day with me, if you can just behave for this one day, I will get you anything you want." And Tommy spits in his face, which is just such a great reaction.
And this may be my favorite line of the episode.
Oh yeah. Then Charlie's well, sure. Charlie is getting ready to unlock the bar, and he says, "I'm going to smash your face into a jelly."
It's so good. He's very upset.
He's very upset, but there's also another great part after that when he says he's trying to unlock the bar and it's the wrong key. He just wrong key, and he starts again. I don't know, that the little stuff like that is what gets me.
So they're in the bar, and that probably happens actually before this last rally, because I think once we see the interior of the bar, I think it's Dennis coming back, and Charlie is frustrated and frantically serving and cleaning, and he's like, "Where have you been? Where have you been? You said 11:30. I'm running late. The waitress is almost here." So he's been really distracted for the past, who knows how long since they've been open, while Dennis was failing miserably at the abortion rally.
Covered in eggs.
Right. So then I think Dennis is probably saying, you got to get this kid out of the bar. Like, he shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And that's when they sort of swing over to Tommy and his table, which is, he's playing Game Boy still, but his table is filled with 4 glasses or half empty or empty glasses of beer. And that's when someone's like, dude, he's drunk. He smells like alcohol. He reeks.
Whoa, dude, this kid reeks of booze.
I would like to point out that I think he's playing a Nintendo DS in this scene. It's not the Game Boy anymore.
Oh, so it's a different console?
I'm pretty sure it's a DS, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well. And so, yeah, basically, he's been, basically finishing off everyone's leftover beers for the past hour or so, getting drunk while playing video games because Charlie's super distracted serving and tending bar because everyone's running late at the abortion rally.
So, yeah, that's not the look that you want. So Charlie takes him outside, like, you got to get some fresh air, kid. You got to walk around, or like some
walk it off. Yeah, I think at one point he's like, I got to get you some coffee, and I think D or someone was like, don't give him coffee, like that's not going to help. So they get outside into the alley, the famous alley, and he sits him down to try and get him some fresh air, and basically immediately the waitress rolls up with her little sister as Charlie's like yelling and shaking and dealing with this drunk child. I think he keeps saying, "I'm drunk."
I'm drunk. He's drunk?
He's not drunk.
I am drunk.
You're not drunk.
He sounds drunk.
I am drunk.
You're not drunk. Stop saying that.
So good. And then he throws up.
Yeah, I think that's, Charlie's like basically on the verge of being convincing enough by saying it just louder and louder that he's not drunk. He's not drunk.
Yeah.
and then he vomits into his own hand or into Charlie's hand or something, and then it's evident that he's drunk.
Yeah. So then the only scene left is when Charlie talks to the dad, right?
Yeah, which I thought was kind of a throwaway scene.
I was just going to say that I thought this last scene did not need to be there.
Yeah, we didn't get into it, but at the clinic, Tommy pulls the classic child why bit. Charlie's like, well, we're here to see a special friend of mine. Why? He's like, because he's going to tell us some very important things. This is a paternity test, but he doesn't mention it to Tommy. And then he says, why? And he says, why? And then, Charlie just freaks out and he's very upset and frustrated. So when at the end, like I said, it seems like a throwaway to me, but Charlie rolls up on a corner in Philly, which is very Philly, and the guys are just like sitting out on the corner in like plastic chairs drinking beer and says,
drinking 40s. To be specific.
Yeah.
A very specific kind of drinking style.
Yeah. So I guess I forget what his first name is, but it's like, hey, are you Eddie? Jimmy Doyle? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, Charlie Kelly from high school? He's like, oh, yeah. I didn't recognize you without the zits or acne or something. And he's like,
terrible line.
Yeah. He's like, well, I just thought you should know that like your kid is blah, blah, blah. And he's like,
why?
Let's see. Because your kid has serious emotional problems.
Why?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe because you're not there for him as a father?
Why?
Are you kidding me?
Why?
Let's do it again?
Why?
That's what you're doing?
Why?
That's what you're doing to me?
Why?
It's just a really annoying way of showing that Tommy is Jimmy's son.
Yes. And that'll do it on that one.
Kind of a bummer, but luckily it's 8 seconds long and it's fine.
Yeah.
Because the episode otherwise is pretty awesome.
Exactly. Cool.
All right. Episode 2 on the books.
Episode 2. And all I can say is we're just going to get better and better at this. We don't know what we're doing quite yet, but...
I mean, just think of it audio-wise. We just stepped up half of our production a lot.
Exactly.
So just think of what could happen next week.
Yeah, so that'll do it. And it is 8:38 p.m. in Stockholm.
It is 11:38 a.m. in Crestline, California.
I think the main reason that we're doing this podcast is so we can talk like
to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta like schedule things.
One of our combined true loves in this life is Always Sunny.
In this cruel, dark world. This is like our date night. If we were like, old married couple that had kids and like didn't have sex anymore and nothing was spontaneous or fun and we didn't, do anything for ourselves, it's like, nope. Wednesday nights we get a sitter.
Exactly.
And we go out to dinner.